inviting first Mr. Rajesh Khosla, MMTC Bank. Also inviting Mr. Anil Kansara, Gujarat Gold Center. Mr. Thomas Skaria from Joya Lucas. Mr. Jayant Pavania from Yes Bank. Mr. Shivanshu Mehta from MCX. And Mr. Aditya Doshi from Edelweiss Commodities. The panel discussion is on the gold monetization scheme and making it work for India and the industry. The moderation, of course, is being done by ma'am herself. Ma'am, the session is for 45 minutes cumulatively. It's in your hands now.
See, I feel it is my pleasant duty to moderate this session. I may be too modest to do that. Khosla sir with me, I am feeling privileged and proud today because he is the Bhisham Pitama of Mahabharata sitting over here with me, so I am feeling happy. I was wondering whether I will be able to do justice to this session or not, but once I came to know that Khosla sir is with me, I thought it's okay. On one hand, I am having privilege of having Khosla sir with me. On the other hand, I have a very young generation sitting in front of you. Mr. Thomas Skaria from Joya Lucas, Aditya Doshi from Edelweiss, Shivanshu Mehta from MCX, and then from Yes Banks, Mr. Jayanta. They are with us. Yesterday we had a long debate on gold monetization scheme when all seniors, I will say, associated with the trade for the last so many years were there. Now today, I feel I am new to the trade. But as of Modi's challenge to take young India forward, I think with these innovative ideas that people have in mind, we'll definitely take up gold monetization scheme. I will tell you just like the gold bond scheme, which was announced by the government way back in '99. BIS was assigned to do purity certification, as I told you. Gold deposit scheme took a backseat, but hallmarking picked up. Similarly, there were many reasons for that. GDS not being successful. There were only limited banks. There was lack of infrastructure. There was lack of testing centers at that point of time, and testing used to be take 90 days for testing of the gold jewelry. There were many other reasons also. Same was with gold metal loan scheme, which was launched way back in the year 1998. Certain banks, the identified banks were taken on board who were importing gold and lending it to the exporters. In '99, decision was taken that in addition to the exporter, they can give this loan to the exporters who are customer of other banks. In the year 2005, decision was taken, let that loan be given to domestic manufacturers also, or the jewelers also. But somehow, government is not happy today the way these schemes have taken off during the last so many years. But in the process, hallmarking scheme took off and lot of awareness has come. Today, purity of gold jewelry is certified and is available. Now, after government took a decision to revamp the two schemes and come up with the gold monetization scheme, I feel it is not the sole responsibility of the government to take it off. It is all you people sitting here in this auditorium or in this meeting, all sitting outside that, have to work hard in case we want this scheme to take off. And it's not the time to blame government all the time, it's the time to wake up and start looking at what we have learned from the past, how we can improve upon this scheme, what should be the viable rates, what infrastructure should be in place. There are so many questions which must be coming in mind of all of you, and especially the younger generation. Why we lost that game at that point of time? It's the time for introspection. I feel that is must. Let's start a debate with these younger people into the debate and see how they feel we can improve upon it. And I'm sure if we all join hand in hand, we can take it forward. There is nothing in the world which cannot be done. If Turkey can do, why can't India? That's the way I think, and I am very positive in my thinking. I always think, yes, it can be done. Let's have the doubts which we have in our mind. Let's listen to my panelists now on few of the questions which are coming to my mind immediately. I would like to ask my first question to the senior-most panelist who was involved in yesterday's discussions also, Khosla ji, for his inputs. Like I would like to ask you, Khosla Saab, what do you think? What are the essential elements that would make the current version of GMS workable and successful?
Good morning, everyone. Let's take a macro view and taking a leaf from the gentleman from the Turkish Central Bank. This is a scheme where the ownership lies with the commercial banks. And therefore, a key element in the success or otherwise of a GMS is the commitment of commercial banks to push the scheme. Commercial banks interact with their customers. So commercial banks need to look at customers' interest and satisfy customers' interest. Let's not get lost in 1% or 2%. How convenient is it for a customer to come to a commercial bank to participate in such a scheme? So that's a major role that commercial banks have to worry about. Having taken care of the interest of their consumer, the bank is now worried about performing its own obligation. And its own obligation is how do you assure purity verification? And in turn, how do you assure credible refining? And how do you assure storage of what has been credibly refined? Because in this entire value chain, vis-a-vis the customer, the bank is the owner. And should anything go wrong, it's the bank that is answerable first, and the bank in turn can fall back on its support services of purity verification and refining and storage and delivery. So that is the second aspect of it. Banks are currently used to taking gold jewelry as collateral and lending rupees against it. In the past, there was a loan-to-value ratio of 60%. I think that's now gone up, particularly when it's hallmark jewelry. So that is a different scheme altogether. Here, the deposit gets melted, the deposit gets verified, the deposit gets reconverted into another product. That product either goes on loan to a jeweler, so will the jeweler accept that particular product? The jeweler therefore needs to be involved in this value chain that, listen, these are the people who are going to do the purity verification, these are the people who are going to refine it, this is the kind of product I'm willing to give you on loan. Or is the jeweler going to say, no, I only want the LBMA one and you can do whatever you want to do with this? Failing which, of course, the bank will then go back to the central bank and say, will you please take this as CRR? So the central bank in turn will have to prescribe what it will take. We've heard the Turkish experience that it will only be LBMA large bars. So there's this entire value chain that goes into this. As a refiner, we see ourselves as a very limited role. We've taken the initiative to just go ahead with purity verification centers. And of course, since we're LBMA accredited, we think we can do credible refining and storage. That is our limited role in this entire activity. And I think a lot of banks and other jewelers over here will have to deliberate on their respective roles.
Khosla sir, I would like to conclude what you said. Probably you feel banks should have core competence to mobilize the gold.
As I said, the ownership of the scheme does not rest with the purity verification center.
Yeah, it is with the
Does
banks.
not rest with the refinery.
Yeah.
The ownership rests with banks.
Yes.
And banks need to get their act together and determine how they're going to do it.
You are very right. Bank has to do that, but we all have to assist the bank in achieving that target. Another thing which we touched upon about the procedures and the transparency, I agree with that. That should be simple, procedures should be there, should be known to all. There should be laid down procedures for all the activities in this scheme. I hope and I think government is working in that direction. Guidelines are being prepared for that.
Excuse me, before you just go, I just want to flag one concern. And this is something we've been recommending to government also. Resist the temptation to over-regulate. Allow industry to define its norms. It's not quite right. I mean, government likes to regulate, and I think they like to over-regulate, but if you over-regulate, you will create problems.
Okay, thank you, Khosla Sahab. I don't think government would try to over-regulate, but there should be some regulatory mechanism. Without that, nothing will work in India. You know, we all are Indians. My next question is to Mr. Aditya Doshi from Edelweiss, my young panelist here. What we have learned from the past and improved upon? What are your views on that? He belongs to a refinery.
Thank you for the question. A very good morning to all the ladies and gentlemen sitting here. The gold monetization scheme, according to me, is a very noble concept, which Mr. Arun Jaitley had spoken about in the financial budget. Now, if we speak about the current draft, I think it is suitable for the gold lying in temples, trust, and the educated investors who are in the urban areas. If you talk about rural areas, I don't think many people will be even aware of what the forex is, what the forex reserves is, what happens if they buy a 10-gram gold. If you say there are millions of people buying gold, each of them will buy 10 grams, the quantum will be a very huge amount. Second point was, we speak that there are 20 to 25,000 tons of gold lying in India. I don't think there is actual fact. The figures are just, one says 20,000, second says 25,000. But a considerable quantity of that 25,000 tons of gold comes from household. It comes from the ancestral property. It comes from my forefather or other forefather. And it may be in the form of jewelry, it may be in the form of gifts. We Indians usually have we create an emotional bonding with all the jewelries which we have, and we will not be willing to give it away for melting. So melting is one hindrance which I feel under this scheme. Second thing is we should have some innovative ideas in this scheme. We have many stakeholders. We have the banks, we have the refineries, we have BIS, we have the hallmarking centers. We have, and ultimately above all, the customer who is depositing the gold. We have to keep in mind the interest of each and every stakeholder. The customer should be given sufficient interest. The banker should have incentives to participate in the scheme. The refiners should be, even one more point is the refiners and the BIS, and BIS, I agree, it's a government agency, so it's reliable. Refiners also, there should be a hallmarking of the grading that these all refiners are standard refiners which can be taken under the scheme. Talking about the previous scheme which was introduced in 1999 or even before that, the interest rate which was offered was 1%, 1.5%, and the bankers and other stakeholders were not given some incentives. The incentives should be a main point in this scheme. We should be more innovative in this scheme. Maybe we can give back jewelry to the owner at the maturity. One point which I missed out, the very interesting point in this scheme is that at the maturity you are giving an option to the depositor to redeem the gold either in the form of gold or in terms of cash. That will give a kind of flexibility to the depositor at the maturity. One more thing we can offer to the depositor, if we have a secondary market, then we should give liquidity. There is a lock-in period of 1 year in this scheme. We should have a liquidity so that he can redeem before the maturity, or there can be a secondary market where he can sell it off. It can be easily transferable for that matter. And just to wrap up, education. We have to educate the rural people. They are not aware that holding 10 grams individually gives a big chunk and creates a huge imports in India. And also we can educate them that if you are holding gold at your vault or in your house, it will remain 10 grams. If you are holding 1 kilo, it will remain 1 kilo. But if you give it under the gold monetization scheme, tomorrow it will be 102 kilos instead of 101 kilos.
Thank you very much, Aditya. He has touched upon that issue of innovation in the scheme. I think this is a young blood. He thinks this is the old style scheme, may not work. We have to think for certain innovations. And he has given good ideas also. One more thing which he has touched upon about the stakeholders. Certificate or that bank credit should be transferable. That's also he touched upon. I would just like to ask Mr. Anil Kansara. He is asking about stakeholders. Are the stakeholders ready today to take up this assignment? How long they will take? If they have to come up, if the schemes come up, maybe in 1 or 2 months, how much time will it take?
Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to address this gathering today. The basics I'll go into just initially, there are 3 stakeholders in the main scheme. The first is BIS approved assaying and hallmarking centers. The second one being the refineries will produce gold as per the BIS standard. And the third one, which is most important, is banks basically, which have to put their foot forward and contribute to this scheme, because without them, I think probably we'll not see basically the scheme getting come out of this. As far as infrastructure readiness is concerned, I believe we have more than some 350 odd hallmarking centers already across the country, out of which about 50 to 60% of the centers are working since years, I think more than 5 years of operating experience of accepting jewelry from the BIS licensed jewelers, but at the same time we have a lot of time people coming to us to verify a hallmark jewelry also. So we have system in place where we can accept gold coming to us in the GDS scheme or gold monetization scheme, which can within a short period of time we can definitely across very transparently convince the client that this is going to be the gold, this is going to be the value of that gold, please go and report it to the bank. I think yes, infrastructure wise, at the present we see in the first or 2 years of rollout of this GMS scheme, I think probably we are equipped to immediately fall into that situation once the BIS approves those hallmarking centers. The second portion is the refineries, which we believe MMTC PAMP is of course is a epitome of all these refineries. In the future, if ever a government wants that the gold should be placed somewhere outside the country, we have that infrastructure ready to get it converted to internationally acceptable standard. Present in present mode, but future we wish that the Indian gold standard also should be acceptable worldwide. Why not? So BIS is already putting up, I think probably a guideline for accreditation of refineries also. The standard is already framed, and I think Indian refineries have been in process since many years also. They are of course not large as per standard we call a large refineries, but yes, medium refineries of a medium scale size have all that infrastructure available to them. The gold being produced by them is very well accepted in the market so far. It's not being challenged that no, we will not accept this gold. So presently, the GMS or the gold monetization scheme is concerned, I think yes, the bank should be prepared to accept gold certified under BIS guideline to be deliverable to the bank and then ultimately being again delivered further to the jewelers for the gold lending. The third one, the role most important is banks. I believe basically so far refineries or hallmarking centers have been going again and again to the government to give them approval, because there is an opportunity where the industry will grow. The banks have to come and tell or propose support the refineries or the hallmarking centers and sort of create a confidence. Yes, we will be prepared to accept your gold, your hallmark jewelry under this scheme. If that assurance is given, I think probably yes, our refinery and the hallmarking centers under the present circumstances, we are fully prepared.
Thank you, Kansara sir. I feel The stakeholders, if not ready today, by the time this scheme will be formed up by the Government of India, will be ready to take up this assignment immediately, provided the regulatory framework is there. That is my apprehension. That has to be in place. Having trust in the purity of the gold tested by a hallmarking center and taken by the refinery or the jewelry or the gold produced by the refinery and monetized, later is acceptance by any of the jeweler in our country or outside. That is also important. Let's see what are the common issues and concerns about movement of goods and applicability of tax. For this, I would request Mr. Thomas Sakaria, Joya Lucas, to please let us know what do you think about this.
Good morning, everyone. Even though the finance minister has talked about 20,000 tons of gold, the potential target here is 10 or 20% of that. As a jeweler, we experience that only 5% of demand is towards investment of bars or coins. The rest 90-95% goes to jewelry. We all know that jewelry is on an average 10 to 15% more expensive than investment bars. Still, people prefer to buy jewelry. And especially when you talk about 10-20% of the targeted monetized gold, initially we are targeting only anticipated only 100 to 200 tons of gold. And majority will be from the high net worth individuals or trust or institution. The major part of this program wouldn't be interested in monetizing gold because most of the holdings are in the form of jewelry. And if you melt the jewelry, there will be a significant reduction in value of asset. And they have an emotional connect towards jewelry. They would like to retain the jewelry during tough times. They don't prefer to sell jewelry rather than opting a pawn broker or a gold loan provider. And we have seen on an average, every household changes their fashion of jewelry on an average of 3 to 5 years time. That is why jewelers in India are able to generate 25 to 40% of scrap gold while they sell new jewelry. So there is a refinement happening here also. When you talk about high net worth individuals, those who are ready to come forward to opt for GMS, there will be a fear factor associated with the tax. Thus, these golds must have accumulated over a period of time or ancestral property or gifted. And when we ask for a minimum KYC details, there will be definite fear factors connected to income tax. Probably these assets may not have been declared properly in the past or valued not properly. So we should come up with some amnesty. I'm talking about this, especially we are talking a new enactment called Prevention of Black Money. And there are already things happened in the income tax, the way we will disclose our income, the way we disclose our assets. Those are mind blocks in the mind of the customer. So we need to come up with some amnesty or voluntary disclosure of income scheme where people are open to declare their gold and there will be no questions asked to a particular quantity per person. I think this is going to be a crucial success factor for this scheme.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. I would like to pose the same question to Mr. Shivanshu Mehta, MCX. What is your opinion about the common issues, concern, movement of goods, applicability of taxes?
Good morning to all. Ma'am, I think essentials for this scheme to be successful are two. One is liquidity and one is participation. Now, as we are all aware, MCX over the past decade or so has created not only a domestic price benchmark which the bullion value chain and even jewelry outlets use for transactions, physical transactions every day, having 98% of the market share domestically and being the number 3 exchange globally by the number of contracts traded. Over the past decade, MCX has contributed to India's journey of becoming a price giver rather than a price taker as well. So that is one. Now, when we talk about movement, firstly, let's understand the infrastructure.
Yeah.
You know, the commodity exchange infrastructure, MCX, we have a presence across 1900 different locations across the country. And if you look at the postal code wise, the presence is at 7,000 locations, unique locations, if we include the franchisees of our member brokers.
Okay.
So if you put this figure in perspective, 22 lakh clients are registered with MCX, unique clients, and out of which over the past 5 years, 14 lakh clients have traded in gold. So this is the liquidity pool which I'm talking about, which exists and which should be tapped into for making this scheme successful.
Yeah.
Now, specifically coming to the movement of goods part,
Yeah.
we feel that delivery gets centered around locations where the top part of the value chain is centered. However, the demand and the infrastructure, like I said, number of clients and penetration exists across the country. So to make this penetration for delivery also possible, a uniform tax code, of course the matter is still under consideration, a uniform tax code would definitely help here. So the VAT benefit should not get lost for a person reselling in a different state.
Thank you, Mr. Shivanshu. Now let's listen to Mr. Jayant, Yes Bank. What are the viable rate of interest of gold deposit as well as gold loans in your opinion? Let me listen as a bank.
Hello everyone, I am from Yes Bank and probably the only banker on the panel. Before I come to that question, what is the viable rate of interest for banks and for the consumer?
both.
Let me just connect few dots. So we have a feeling that only the gold investment demand will come into the banking sphere and not the gold jewelry demand. So my response to that is India as a whole is an underbanked country. There is a lot of scope for growth of financial inclusion. A good part of our population is not banking. And a good part of that population is buying gold as jewelry. So drawing a parallel and a lesson from the Turkish experience, we need to bring all this population into the sphere of banking. And maybe with education and awareness, we can incentivize consumers to part ways from jewelry purchase and rather keeping gold in deposit form with banks. I think we can solve this problem. And Khosla ji has rightly pointed out, this business is to be driven by banks. Just like banks being a public trust institution, accept your deposits, give away loans, facilitate trade, issuing LCs, bank guarantees. Similarly, in bullion also, I think banks have a key role to play along with the central bank and the regulators in facilitating this scheme. Coming to the question you asked, what should be the rate? I think we need to go back to the first basic of gold, that it is currency. Gold is probably the most universally accepted currency after USD. So when we apply the principles of interest rate parity, I think universally gold should attract the same rate of interest, whether it's in US or Europe or in India. So I think anywhere between 1 to 2%, which is equivalent to the rate of interest on dollars, should be a viable rate. Now, will it work in India or not? So if we look at the current landscape, the jewelry manufacturers are borrowing gold from Indian banks, and Indian banks are sourcing this metal in form of overdraft or gold lease from our suppliers. So if the rates are in line with what it is today, things should work fine according to me. If the rates are not in line, or if the government, to incentivize and to kickstart the whole process, wants to reward more to the depositors just to bring them into the system, you may have to enact regulations around curbing of gold import for purpose of loan, or you may want to give, the government can give additional incentives in form of tax breaks to further incentivize the depositor. Now, one big question which we find missing is, what do the bank do with gold? Suppose there is not enough gold metal loan demand. Can the Indian Central Bank, just like the Turkish Central Bank, allow banks to keep their reserve requirements, SLR and CRR, in form of gold? Do we have that acceptance? Or can we evolve our discussion to that level.
Mr. Jain, standing at this podium, I can't say it's the decision of the Government of India and RBI.
Right.
Only this, what we are debating is only our suggestions. I may not say recommendations also. These are suggestions as our opinion of the House. We can just put forward to the government.
I agree with
Whether government will take cognizance of this, at this point I can't say anything. But hope government will take care of all these things. I would like to ask the same question to Mr. Thomas Sakaria from jeweler's perspective. What does you say about that?
Once gold is monetized, I can see only three major stakeholders: the depositor, the bank, and the jeweler. So, in long run, we should strike a balance. Only market forces will decide the real interest rates. But depositor should be attracted towards a scheme. Bank should get some economic benefit, and jewelers should not be overcharged. Currently, jewelers are really interested in gold loan because it is supporting their end usage, it is cost effective, and there is an inbuilt hedging mechanism available. Currently, jewelers are paying gold loan in the range 4 to 6% based on their level of their balance sheet and the risk profile. I think we as an industry should be prepared to pay slightly more to make this scheme successful, but there is a positive factor also while you pay something extra, because most of the banks consider this segment as very high risky business. So they don't really lend working capital to this particular gems and jewelry. I think through this gold monetization scheme, bank will come forward and lend more and more money to the jewelers, and that will give a larger impact to this community, and there will be a lot of working capital availability to this sector, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas, for giving insight from a jeweler's perspective. Now I would like to ask one question again to Kansara sir. Whether the infrastructure backbone, operational system, support required to ensure safety, transparency, and accountability is in place. Do you think that is there, or we have to do something over that? And in which direction we should move? Because it is in the interest of the all.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd like to share my opinion on this. That there has to be an ecosystem for a scheme of this size and scalability. It is a must for a success. We have to have a daily infrastructure without any doubt in place, with a regulatory body, namely BIS, having its expertization in creating and maintaining standards on manufacture and product certification, a well-established mechanism to monitor the standards on functioning of the entities engaged in the scope of their work, widespread availability of sufficient numbers of hallmarking centers competent enough to meet the challenge of gold monetization scheme, and establish refineries in all important bullion trading centers with proven track record of offering a very transparent trustworthiness and business transaction, undisputed quality and safety of metal being entrusted to them. A highly organized, of course, the logistic industry engaged in movement of bullion securely and safely all across country. Accountability of each and every activity entrusted in individual field of operation will be well drafted in the guidelines to be released in final print. But by far the heaviest responsibility will lie with the BIS approved hallmarking centers and refineries, certifying initial gold input, converting the same to an acceptable standard of quality with all the safety and security of customer gold made available to them while it is in their custody. I think
And
probably,
Sarah,
yes.
this is your perception that BIS should be the regulatory authority?
Yeah.
Even as BIS officer, I do not know
We
which will be the regulatory authority
wish
of the
that
country.
BIS should have a regulatory framework, but at the same time, like Mr. Khosla said,
I'm
let the
coming to Mr. Khosla for that. I'm coming to
industry,
you now.
yes, they should have flexibility of operation.
Yeah, that's
The regulatory standards should not chop basically the progress or the growth of the.
If you will please bear with me, I'll give you a short story or something similar. Centuries ago, when Alexander the Greek decided to embark from Greece and conquer the world, he went to his high priest and he said, please give me your blessings. I'm going to go and conquer the world. And his high priest took him to a log of wood, and there was a thick rope which was entwined over this log of rope of wood, and it had all kinds of knots on it. And the high priest told him, before you go to conquer the world, please untie all the knots in this rope. Now Alexander was a young man in a hurry, and he said, fine, I'll do it my way. He took out his sword and he cut the rope. So when you look at what you're trying to do here, you have no option but to think out of the box. If we are all going to be talking about the same thing, and regulation and over-regulation, with due respect to the BIS, this is nothing to do against any organization, let me toss something back at you. What does the customer want? The bank's customer wants proper verification of purity of the gold in the item that he gives to the bank. Therefore, the role of purity verification centers is critical. And therefore, rightly, the BIS must get involved in accrediting purity verification centers. But this is where the relationship stops. The customer or the bank is not concerned with what happens to this gold. What is the relationship between a purity verification center and a refinery? That is not and should not be the bank's headache, should not be the customer's headache, should not be the regulator's headache. And the easiest way of doing this is when you accredit a purity verification center, ask it to pre-deposit gold with a bank. If I'm a purity verification center and I'm accredited, I'm happy to deposit a kilo of gold with the State Bank of India. And you keep on sending me your customers and I will verify the purity, and you keep on debiting that account. After that, what I do with the gold is my problem. Whether I sell it to a refiner, whether I refine it myself, whether I sell it. Insofar as the scheme is concerned, the bank, the customer, and the purity verification center are all protected. Think differently, I think you'll find a lot of answers. Thank you.
My name is Rajan, I work for Scotiabank. One of the things that everybody has been talking about is saying it should be the responsibility of the banks to run this and the banks. The biggest issue that needs to be resolved is, just remember one thing, as far as the banker is concerned, who is my counterparty? It is that customer. Today, a customer, when he comes to give his scrap jewelry, he is coming not because of a refinery, not because of an SA center. He is coming because either it is a State Bank of India or a Bank of Nova Scotia, in whom he has implicit trust. So therefore, it's for us as bankers, our customer are our main counterparty. So for me to be able to, it's a big reputational risk that we run. If I accept jewelry, and whether I give it to a BIS hallmark assaying center, and from there it goes to a refinery, and from there it comes back to me as a bar, which I have to subsequently lend to a jeweler. Let's keep the interest rate aside, because those are all determined by market factors. How do we as bankers get that comfort feeling, get that secure feeling that the gold that is refined, melted, and ultimately comes back to the banker for onward lending and to the depositor for repayment or maturity? That loop needs to be closed very securely. Till then, we can keep talking about it, but unless the banks feel that secure comfort feeling, it's going to be very difficult for them to step right up front.
I think you have raised a very valid point, although I don't know whether I am the right person to answer this question or not. With the little knowledge I have, like I can answer this question. The government is already thinking that if it is I agree with you, it is the sole responsibility of the bank. They are operating this scheme. These banks will have their prerogative to use any of the collection or purity verification center and any of the refineries, they feel like they will be having a tripart agreement with the refinery as well as with the purity verification center. I think that agreement will take care of all these issues, what you feel, what your doubts you have in your mind. I feel so. I don't know whether I have answered it correctly or not. Khosla साहब अगर आप बहुत हंस रहे हैं मुझे बता दीजिए if I have said something wrong.
नहीं, आप, you know, from which is why government should never be in business. Government should do what it needs to do, and that is to govern. Tripartite agreements are very nice documents. They're pieces of paper, and I would hate to spend the rest of my lifetime in courts trying to enforce them. So you need to get out of this, and at the end of the day, as Rajan says, the bank needs to be comfortable. The bank is taking a counterparty risk. The bank will take a call on the counterparty, and the bank will build safeguards to secure counterparty risk. And one of the safeguards I'm suggesting to the banks is ask your counterparty to pre-deposit gold with you. Then effectively you've isolated yourself from counterparty risk. Thank you.
Can I say something, Mr. Rajan? I would request, actually, that's what we have been trying to say since years together. Please give the domestic refining industry a chance to fulfill your satisfaction as far as creditability of gold being deposited with you is concerned. Unless you put your step forward, I am requesting the bankers here basically because I believe this is a scheme of the bank. If you do not allow the Indian industry, hallmarking center, yes, we have already said and debated, hallmarking center will be a part of the scheme. Unless you allow, how do you expect that the refineries all across country will achieve a standard of LBMA in a very short period of time, which is, I think, probably very, very difficult. But someday you have to put trust in the Indian bullion industry, which can produce acceptable Indian standard gold. That's what we have been trying to say, that there should be an Indian standard gold available in the country, which over a period of time could be, I think, probably acceptable in the world also. Why Indian standard cannot be accepted within our own country when we are talking about making India? That's the only request. I don't say banks have their prerogative or the right to accept gold only from their own refineries whom they trust. But please think on this line also, so that I think probably the future of Indian refining industry also could probably come to an expected level. If the people trust, the jewelers trust us, why not the bank will trust us?
I would like to assure that BIS, in addition to the purity certification, in case BIS will be asked to do that, will definitely lay down requirements which may not be at par with what LBMA is, but the requirements which will be suited to our industry here, and we'll try our level best to bring up the level of our Indian refinery to meet the challenges. Thank you.
Yeah, all I'd like to say, see, as all of you know, gold I'm going to give for onward lending to my jeweler friends only. Okay, so if they accept the gold which an Indian refinery is giving, I will not object. No? They should not say that, no, I only want LBMA bars, or so if it is accepted by jewelers, what problem do I have?
See, we have to develop our credibility. The scheme has not yet been launched. We have not yet started accreditation of refineries or certification of bullion, although we are preparing for that. But I hope a time will come, not today, maybe in a year or so, when the acceptability of the Indian bullion will be there in domestic market as well as maybe in the time to come in the international market. I can just hope that.
May I say something? I think Padmanabhan from the Reserve Bank of India, I retired recently. I think as far as the gold monetization scheme is concerned, I agree with Mr. Khosla that probably we are trying to fix too many things at the beginning itself. I think what is one single factor that needs to be achieved for this scheme to take off, in my view, change the mindset of the people to bring their gold and jewelry and prepare that to be converted And at that conversion, they accept the fact that at the end of your experience, this is the gold that you are prepared, you are going to get back, the value of the gold at a particular rate of interest. Now, thereafter, getting it into who should do what, in what manner they should get it, the bank should be giving back exactly the gold back to the customer, I'm not able to understand. If I am prepared to convert my gold into a form and accept that at the end of X period, I am going to get enough money to buy that much amount of gold, whether the bank should be doing it, the jeweler should be doing it, probably the jewelers are better prepared to do this. Why should anybody walk into a bank branch to buy gold? So I think the problem with this whole thing is that we are trying to fix too many micro things. Let's get the big picture right, and once we get it right, and as our colleague from the Central Bank of Turkey said, from a regulatory perspective, you decide what is the kind of open position or the risk that the bank can run from a stability angle. I think there the concerns for the regulators and the government should end. The rest of the things the market should drive. But probably my worry is that we are trying to fix too many things.
I agree with you. I think we should take one thing at a time and then resolve the problems. But the most important thing which I feel today is to educate the consumer or the depositor to come forward for this. I think that's a very big challenge in hand. And of course, the whole responsibility lies with banks. Nobody is denying that fact. In fact, they should be the regulator than anybody else, I feel.
I think the pertinent point here is like the counterparty risk angle, which the bank will experience. I think the commodity exchange platform is ideal for banks to be allowed to hedge their positions. And probably since it's all a suggestion, so this is also one more suggestion that the Indian Banking Regulation Act of 1949 suitably, notifications if they can be made, and domestic commodity exchanges should be the platform where the hedging portion of this kind of a scheme can be taken care of.
I'm really sorry, what I'm trying to say may not sound very good to you all people, I think. See, everyone here is talking from the point of view of the government or the bankers and what they want or how will they benefit from the GMS scheme. But no one here is talking from the point of view of the consumer. As a consumer, I'm wearing this gold chain, which is weighing around 50 grams. And I've already paid 10 to 15% of making charges to acquire this chain. Now tell me one good reason. Why should I go to the refiner and melt this, my beloved chain in front of my eyes and deposit in the bank for the 2% of interest?
See, I agree. I'll just reply to your question. That was the first question as a consumer came to my mind also. It is for me to decide the pros and cons of depositing my gold under GMS or not. I was sharing this question before I came over here. See, my husband retired a year ago. He has accumulated so much of funds which he wants to put in fixed deposit. Whether he has to go for fixed deposit to earn interest or that, or he has to buy gold and monetize that gold, that I have to think I should be enough educated to take a decision. That education and awareness, I think, is the most important thing in our country.
Madam, as a suggestion for the real success of GMS, if we really want to make it successful, then there should be a higher limit of depositing gold in the banks, and there should be no questions asked in any way but by any tax authority of India.
Okay.
There shouldn't be any question regarding how, from where you get this gold and anything question like that. Because that way you will scare the people from this scheme. And in 1 year, the whole deposit, which will be deposited by the consumer, should be converted as a white gold. See, there has to be a motivation for the sacrifice which is made by the consumer. He is making sacrifice and he is not getting any type of motivation.
On your question, I think Mr. Janto would like to reply to you.
Yeah, you raised a very pertinent point. This 50-gram chain that I am wearing, why should I give it to the bank and lose 15% while depositing and lose another 15 when I take the gold back from the bank? I'll give you an analogy on this. 15 years back, I think debit cards were not there, and we used to carry cash to buy whatever we have to buy from the market. At that time, somebody would have asked me, why should I carry a card instead of carrying cash, and why would the shopkeeper accept it from me? So my answer to your question is, you have bought this chain already, but for the second chain, you may not want to buy the chain, but you may want to buy a gold deposit with the bank.
I would like to convey my sincere thanks to all the panelists sitting over here and to all the delegates also who have shown their keen interest in this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I would request all the panelists and the moderator to please stay on the stage. Ma'am, one special duty that a chairperson must execute is presenting a memento to each one of the panelists. Mr. Rajesh Khosla, thank you so much for your time on the stage, sir. Mr. Anil Kansara, Mr. Thomas Skaria, Mr. Jayant Pavania, Mr. Shivanshu Mehta, and Mr. Aditya Doshi. I would request Mr. Srivatsava, the President of Fortel Solutions, to please join us on the stage and present a memento to ma'am for her chairing of the session and presentation.